Welcome to regularly scheduled council meeting. Do I have the,
You didn't bring it?
the,
You took it last time.
thank you. Regular scheduled meeting of the City of Newton Falls Council on, what is today, the 5th? 4th. Please turn off all your cell phones or set them to vibrate. Unless prearranged, the public comment sections are limited to 3 minutes. A 3-minute timer is used, and when the timer sounds, you will be asked to conclude your statement. The comment sections on the agenda are not a debate or question and answer session. The first public comments section is for the agenda items only. Finally, public comment section can be used on any issue the public wishes. We ask the spectators to please keep quiet during the meeting. If you are too loud, it is disruptive to all others. If any other attendee is too loud, they will receive a warning. If it happens again, you will be asked to leave. The clerk will now please take the roll.
Beer.
Here.
Alberini. Bariak.
Here.
Savet.
Here.
Waddell.
Here. Take a motion to excuse Mr. Alberti.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion. Second.
Ask for discussion.
I asked for the second.
They got a second.
I'll second. Vote?
Bariak.
Yes.
Savet.
Yes.
Waddell.
Yes.
Beer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag. And now tonight, we have from the Reverend Betty Angelini. I hope I didn't massacre it too bad.
You got it just right.
Thank you very much, from the Warren First Presbyterian Church to lead us.
Let us pray. Holy and gracious God, we give you thanks for this day and for the many and abundant blessings you have bestowed upon us. We give you thanks for the opportunity to gather and do the work of this local government in the democracy known as the United States. I pray for all of these elected officials called to govern in this community of Newton Falls, specifically for Mr. Savet, Mr. Barack, Mr. Waddell, Mr. Bear, and Mr. Alberini. Also for Mr. Lynch, Mr. Fritz, and Miss King. Grant them wisdom, a sense of justice, and patience as they make decisions for all the citizens of Newton Falls. Help them to have a sense of welfare of the needs of the people they govern. Provide them with the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is disagreement. Be with any citizen who will speak. May their needs and views be expressed and understood. And when work is finished and we travel home in the darkness, continue to be our guiding light. In your blessed and holy name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. We've had the roll.
We do roll? Okay, I'm sorry. That's the presentation.
We've had the roll. Tonight, before we get started, there's been a buzz all over town, and I'd like to start tonight. I'd like to thank the city manager for his letter to everyone in Newton Falls. It's been a real buzz all around town regarding the reduction in the electric bills and more good news to come.
Ms. Barnett, that would be part of your reports when it comes around. We're in special presentations now. So,
Okay, all right, I can wait. Special presentation by staff members or invited consultants. We have the Newton Falls Senior Class and Veterans Day program tonight.
Hi, I'm Julie Koss, Student Body President of Newton Falls High School,
And I'm Allie Sembeck, the Senior Class President at Newton Falls High School.
and we would like to invite all the members of our community and all the veterans to our Veterans Day program that's happening this Thursday. The meet and greet will begin at 8 a.m., and then the ceremony will begin at 9 a.m. promptly, and we hope to see everyone there.
The senior class has been working hard to put on this program to honor our veterans, and we'd really appreciate if you came to celebrate with us. We have a special gift if you'd allow them to step forward.
Very nice.
And we'd like to thank you for your time in allowing us to speak here tonight.
Hi, I'm Renee Downing. I'd like to invite you on behalf of the girls basketball team to join us in fighting like a zebra at our foundation game on November 19th at 6 o'clock. All proceeds will go to my sister, Chloe Downing, who is suffering from hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Just 2 summers ago, Chloe was a basketball and volleyball player at Newton Falls, but now she can't even attend school, let alone play sports. We're also selling t-shirts through the end of this week if you're interested in joining the fight. Thank you.
Did everybody get one?
Do me a favor. Set one up right there so Steve can get a shot of it. Up it when it's go like that. Yeah. Set it up right there, move that one along. Was it done?
I'd like to, very nice. Also, we have a proclamation tonight to Natalie Phillips at, wait, excuse me, Mr. Waddell.
It's a secret, just if you wait a second. Let me do this if you would, please.
What was that, sir?
They don't know about it yet, so if we want to get them up in front of the podium. Bring them up in front of the podium.
Mr. Waddell, if I need any help, I'll ask the law director. Would you please
Would you
be
bring them-
recognized? When I recognize
Yeah,
you,
would
you
bring them
will
up
be
in front of the
recognized,
podium,
sir.
please?
Were you out of order, sir?
Good, would you bring them up in
You
front
are
of the
out of
podium?
order, sir.
Good,
You are out of order.
thank you.
Mr. Fritz, could you help me, please?
He can ask for the floor and you can grant it to him.
Good. Round of applause, please.
Yes.
Could you bring them up in front of the podium?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Would you like to come up to the floor now?
If, right off the names.
Natalie Phillips. Well, that's what I was going to do, Joe, when I called the names, I was going to ask them to come up. Natalie Phillips, Addison Phillips, Nicholas Reynolds, Alessia Reynolds, and Hayden Netzel. Would you come on up?
You guys would like to step in front of the podium, and stand behind the podium?
Mayor, Mr. Waddell, would you
Yes.
please?
All right, may I read this, please?
Do you want to run this together?
May I read this, please?
If you guys want to walk.
I would like to at least I'm running the meeting, sir. I don't want
asked
any
if I could
problem.
read this.
Thank you. I recognize you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right. A couple of months ago, there was a very tragic fire in Newton Falls, and we had some young children who decided that they wanted to raise some money for one of the victims of the fire so they could move on with themselves, and I think that was a great inspiration. As I understand it, they raised over $1,200 selling lemonade. So at this time, we have a certificate of appreciation, and I have one of these for each one of you. So the Newton Falls City Council would like to recognize Natalie Phillips, Addison Phillips, Nicholas Reynolds, Alexia Reynolds, and Hayden Hetzel for his compassion to the family members of the recent tragedy. The unselfish act of erecting a lemonade stand to raise money for the family should be a lesson to all of us that it only takes one act of kindness to impact someone's life. Newton Falls City Council commends Natalie Phillips, Addison Phillips, Nicholas Reynolds, Alexia Reynolds, and Hayden Hetzel, and for their dedication and commitment to their neighbors and their interest in the community. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
We'd like to get a
You guys
picture
want
of
to come over here,
everybody.
please?
Right over there.
Come
You
on.
guys want to join me?
I'd like to have everybody have a picture, please.
Okay, you can move over. I just want to leave an aisle for everybody.
Okay.
We're going to go now to public comments listed to items only on the agenda. Would anyone like to speak on the agenda tonight?
There's 3 different entities. There's the township, the city or village, and the fire board or fire district that has to vote on everything before it becomes an amendment to the fire district. And before it becomes binding as an agreement or an amendment that is followed for everything. And there's been a lot of back and forth, and in 2016, the agreement that I gave you, the township passed that, and it's been trying to get to, so did the board, the fire board, and the city, it's been trying to get here to the city for quite a few years. 2017, that was passed by the city, by the council at the time, and there's a lot of changes in this one that you have on tonight that are not favorable to our fire district, the men and women who, well, the men that take care of our citizens and our community, the city and the township. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of work that goes into protecting our citizens. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on this agreement tonight before this passes. And it's not good. You've got in this agreement tonight, going back to the dollar amounts of 2015. That's not fair to the citizens of our communities, because that means that the fire district is going to have to go back and ask for more taxes from all of us citizens. That's not right. The use of the building downstairs, the verbiage or the words in there now state that the use of the building downstairs is for the fire department or the fire district. The new verbiage is they're going to have to come to the city manager, and ask to lease, which is going to cost the taxpayers or the community money, because you don't have that in here. And right now, the fire district or the fire board isn't using that room. And, yes, sir. My request from city council would be to please table this and make it more usable, or go back to the original agreement, plus the dates are wrong. It says from January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. It's already done. Thank you.
Richard Monteville, 1025 Page Court, Newton Falls, Ohio. Kind of an answer in an ordinance 2019-31, as Ms. Moran just spoke on. Being a member of the fire board along here, the fire board has accepted this agreement. This has been a verbal agreement, like she said, has been sitting on the desk for several years. The fire board has accepted it, and we'd be happy to get this to put to bed. The trustees have voted on it, and they have passed it, and now they're waiting on the city, your city council here, if you would pass it. And once we do that, we'd like to get one signed copy from all three entities, and then we'll have it on history, and that we're all happy with this agreement, and we can move forward. Thank you.
Did you see the new one? Yeah. No, you didn't.
Warner Lang, 510 Superior in Ward 3, and I'd like to address item number 9 that's on your agenda and call your attention to a grave injustice that has been inflicted upon my ward. The person sitting in the council seat for Ward 3 is not a legitimate candidate. The charter is very clear on the process of the appointments for a vacancy, and you all know that Article 3, Section 3 states any vacancy in the office of councilman shall be filled within 60 days. It is my understanding that the former councilman, Mr. Stimpert, resigned by letter, time-stamped 8 a.m. on August the 8th. If you count forward, 60 days expires on October the 6th. Even if, as some argue, the clock doesn't start ticking until 24 hours after the resignation, like saying that if a person dies on Monday, their death really doesn't begin until Tuesday. Even if you did that, the clock expires and the window of opportunity for council to appoint the new representative is over at 8 a.m. that day. You committed this act in violation of the charter, and I say that the person occupying the Ward 3 seat is not legitimate and should be removed at the earliest possible date. You all just made a pledge to the flag that ends with 3 very important words: justice for all. And that's all that I and other members of Ward 3 ask, is justice. There was and there still remains a legitimate candidate. She's a veteran and a cancer survivor, and Tessa Spelsic will fight hard and long to combat and overcome the political cancer that has been infesting our community for so long. I ask you to comply with the charter and remove Lyle Waldell from his council seat at the earliest possible date. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of council, anybody who's watching this broadcast as well. My name is Brian Kropp, 247 Elizabeth Street. I'm also on Ward 1. And I would first like to say, before I start my presentation or start my little speech here, that I would really love everyone's undivided attention, because I think that's really shows respect, and that's one thing that has been lacking in this chamber for so long. I want to say that I also want to speak about issue number 9 as well. That the Ward 1 and Ward 3 positions now, from what I understand, will not be even voted on according to the Board of Elections. So this is absolutely crucial. And I want to reiterate how embarrassing this council, the actions of this council, and how the behavior of some of the members of this council has been to the residents of this city, the students of the school, the parents, the taxpayers. You guys really need to take a hard look at yourselves and how you carry yourselves and how you behave, because it's an absolute embarrassment. It's a joke. It really is. Newton Falls, if any CEOs, executives, people that want to move businesses or homes or families or anything wants to come here, if they watch any of these, go back 6 months. If you watch any of these council meetings, it's laughable. It's an absolute travesty and a joke, and you guys should be embarrassed for yourselves and for our city, because it is. It's an embarrassment. I'll say it again. It's an embarrassment. Absolute embarrassment. So with that being said, I'd like to make sure that we get this looked into as far as the first ward and the third ward being up for election, because as Mr. Lang mentioned, at least one of the candidates shouldn't even be in the position that he's in. There's essentially been a coup in Newton Falls, and it's right here in front of our faces. And for anybody who knows that this is happening or has actively participated in it, shame on you. And if anyone has not spoken up or spoken out about this, shame on you as well. To sit on your hands and not do anything for the people of this town, the people of this city, to not step up and say something or do something about this is an absolute travesty. So thank you. I appreciate the time. Have a good night.
I have to find my glasses, John, before my 3 minutes start, if you don't mind. I'm old. Pat Lashock, 1015 Page Court, good evening. I'd like to address you this evening on item number 9 of your agenda in regards to a motion to seek either a mandamus, a decree of some sort from the Court of Common Pleas in regards to the vacancies and the fillings of these positions. It's very important that we do this. Right now, we have an opinion, and you have taken an oath of office to uphold the charter of the City of Newton Falls. That charter establishes the Department of Law, of which Mr. Fritz holds that office. Mr. Fritz is not a newbie to the position. I believe he's about ready to celebrate. I don't know if we could use that word right or not, Joe, but 10 years of employment with the city as law director. And he has rendered an opinion that these vacancies should come before the voters of each ward for the permanent replacement. Council only seats a temporary replacement by charter. One question I think should be added for the court. There should really be 2 other questions besides the one that Mr. Bariak is seeking, is clarification on the term limits. I was mayor in 1994 when the term limits were changed to make it 2 consecutive terms of city council. That followed suit of what the state legislature had done and restricted both houses to 2 consecutive terms. It was not the spirit and the intent of the Charter Review Commission to allow only certain members of the council to serve unlimited terms, while the other ones were bound to 8-year limitation. It was 8-year limitation for council members, of which the mayor, president of council, was one of. Mr. Waddell served my last 13 months after my recall, and then was elected to 2 4-year terms, all of which he was entitled to. It's what the voters said they wanted, and that's what happened. He is not entitled to continue in that seat for an additional time. And I think that that is a serious question that should be presented to the court with our charter and let the court answer it and lay this to rest instead of a legal opinion. And I think, Joe, Mr. Fritz, I'm sorry, no disrespect. Your legal opinion basically is sort of like in conflict with even our prior law director Schwartz's legal opinion in regards to my 2010 resignation, okay? So we have opinions versus a decree, what the court will tell you that you will be bound by from this point on until it's appealed and finally laid to rest. You'll kick this can down the road forever if we continue to go forward under the opinion of Terry Alberini's first cousin from the Board of Elections opinion. And that opinion to go that Mr. Waddell and Mr. Savette will go forward for the remainder of the term is flawed and has no merit nor substance of law. So I would hope that you would forward these questions and let the court rule this. It's not political, unless you have no faith in your Court of Common Pleas. Thank you for your time.
Boriak. This public comment is just on the agenda, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, I want to talk about this agenda, the agenda itself. Mayor Layshock, prior, all council meetings, when anyone came in here, they received this paper with all ordinances and resolutions attached. People living at home, or people here, picking up this piece of paper, have no idea what you're voting on. Prior to, well, from Mayor Layshock previous, going back about 40-some years at least, all ordinances, first time read, at the council meetings, were read in entirety by the city clerk. So everyone knew what was in it. Now, both times it's read by title only. So citizens of town have no idea what you guys are passing, none whatsoever. Just like if we had the ordinances back in 2013, our electric rates might not be as high as what they are now. Thank you very much.
Very good. Bring it on.
Would there be anyone else that would like to address council tonight? Okay, I rule public closed. We will go on now with the reports. And I'll start with the mayor, right? Yes, all right. First of all, tonight, what I started with before, there's been a buzz around town, Mr. Lynch, and a letter everyone received over the weekend. And it was a surprise to me, in a way. I want to thank you, the city manager, for his letter to everyone regarding reductions in electric bills and more good news to come. The impossible is possible. The rate reductions can happen for all utilities. Thank you for going in the right direction, Mr. Lynch. Thank you very much. And now I want to go on to my committee reports. I attended Eastgate, and we got a $2 million for transit from ODOT for the whole area, not just for Newton Falls, but it was a well-welcomed thing to help the transit. It was very well welcomed. I attended a senior breakfast for by the school seniors at the high school. State Senator Sean O'Brien attended, and he stayed all day. And I really enjoyed meeting the young people there. Our future leaders, they were fantastic. I mean, I had a real great time there with them. I also attended a utility review board meeting, and let's see. I think that's about it. As far as my committees and what I attended. Mr. Savette?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Waddell?
Yeah, a couple of things. I want to say thanks to the Kiwanis for the cakewalk. Did a good job with that. The governor of the state of Ohio was here. He hadn't seen a cakewalk before. He thought that was pretty neat. I went to the OML conference, the Ohio Municipal League, and their focus is basically on all the communities and the legislative issues that are for and against our communities. They really strongly push that we stay connected with our state and our local and federal elected officials and appointed officials, that we need to visit them in Columbus and D.C. as often as we can, and then when they're in-house, when they're in town, we need to visit with them as often as we can. The state of Ohio is focusing on Don't Live in Denial Ohio, which is an opiate crisis convention team. Ken Scarrett, who is the executive director of the OML, met with the governor at the mansion and they're trying to figure out how to get the dollars from the potential lawsuits back into the communities. The opioid manufacturers don't want to go to court. There's 2,300 lawsuits in the state of Ohio right now against the companies, so they're trying to figure out how to get the money back into the communities so they can defray the costs that we're doing for all the, whatever, all the runs we make, all the stings we're doing, all those things. The Fannie Lewis law is held up in chambers. That's basically to get a percentage of local labor to do projects, and that thing's kind of held up right now. House Bill 6, the bailout of the nuclear power plants, the clock ran out on the referendum, and the opponents asked for an extension. The court said no, so this doesn't affect the municipal electric customers. However, if you're a taxpayer, it does affect you because your taxes are going into that project. So, and then there's they're still working with the net profit centralized tax collections, and that's moving toward the courts. There's another program out there right now, and I talked to the fire chief about this. It's called a community paramedicine program, and it's working in Monroe and in Riverside, Ohio, and I believe in Columbus, Cincinnati, and Akron. And what that program does is when someone's released from the hospital gets in contact with the fire department, and they go out and check on the people that were released and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be, taking their own medicines and that. And then the hospitals have a fund set aside for the fire departments to do that. The Eastgate General Policy Board that Councilman Bariak was talking about, the $2 million was for an WRTA grant that increases the mobility, accessibility, and works on autonomous vehicles. And WRTA was excited about that. They have different routes that they're planning to try to do in Trumbull County, and they're going to now look at redoing the routes so that maybe they can take in more of Trumbull County. The Citizens Advisory Board talked about the development of land along the river as the dams come out, and that's a pretty interesting project in itself. And they continue to talk about bringing attention to the region, and it's a great value in working together for a regional plan. The next day they had the regional significance points for some of the projects that we have, and it's quite a lengthy process. And what you have is a spreadsheet with all kinds of numbers and figures on it, and you don't really get to go speak for or against these projects, but I did go down early and talk to a couple of people. These things are kind of set up before you get there, and we have 3 projects on here this year. The Medley Street Sanitary Sewer Project, First Street Mill and Fill Project, and the Washington Avenue Storm Sewer Project. All of them got pretty good scores. There's a chance that all 3 of those might get funded. They were talking about the fact that a lot of the, only 1 year did the programs that are even loan programs didn't get funded. So there's a chance that we may get all 3 of those projects taken care of, and if we do, that would be great for over on that side of town. We did meet with the Economic Development team to discuss some of the ongoing plans. City manager and I met with the residents of Grant Street talking about their water problem down there. And then after that big rain on Thursday, I went down to look, and they got a lot of water in that whole area down there. So hopefully if we get to Washington Street, stay straightened around, and then in another year or 2, we could try to get Grant Street and Adams and that and get them on that. It's amazing to me, you sit between 2 rivers and we have a hard time getting the water to go to the river. It's quite exciting. NOPEC, I had a meeting with NOPEC, and they talked about their presence in the valley and their gas aggregation and those little things that they do. Was at the County Commissioners meeting last week. They honored a couple of groups and some citizens from Newton Falls. I thought that was a great thing for our community. Those who spend Saturday out knocking on doors for the schools, I appreciate all that. There was quite a number of people sitting at these tables that went out and did that. So that was great. And I think the most exciting thing that we did was go to the district volleyball game for the girls volleyball team at their first district tournament game at Lake High School in Uniontown, Ohio. The city manager and I went down and announced the game. It was the girls didn't win, but they have nothing to lower their head about. They got to the districts, they did a great job, and they tried hard and played well, and it was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Waddell. Mr. Beer?
Yes. At the last fire board meeting, we discussed that they have passed their side of the contract, but I don't believe this is their contract. This is our contract, okay? And they always did have possession of the building, north or side of the building, and I would like to see this amended to include that as part of, because it doesn't say that. And then once we send them the approved contract, they'll still have a chance to look it over, and they can accept it or reject it. But I know right off the bat that they're going to be upset if we don't include the room downstairs that they've always used. I'm not opposed to them working out something with us to share the building, but they've always used that for the turkey raffle and all kinds of other things. And sometimes it's not in use, so we need to just hammer that out. But I'd like to see that language put into this contract amended. So that's basically, I just know from the meeting that
We'll
they
get
are.
that when we get to that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about that
I just know that from the meeting that they mentioned that.
I'd like to comment on what Mr. Waddell said. Mr. Lynch, I had made him aware of Grant Street and Ophelia. We have a hydro engineer looking at a lot of the streets now, and we can't do everything that's been let go for 20 or some years, but we are going to make progress. We've got Washington Street, we've got Medley. We're doing we've got a lot of catch up, but as the money becomes available, but Mr. Lynch is on top of everything. I am aware of Grant Street. I was down, I walked the street, I've walked every street in my ward, and everyone, we're just going to have to take it as we go. We can't fix everything at once, but we will do the best we can. And yes, when we were at Eastgate, our points have gone up, haven't they, Mr. Lynch?
Yes, they have.
Yes, they have. We received extra points, which helps us secure the money that we did go after. Okay, is the Finance Director.
For the Finance Director's report, members of council, I just want to let you know in the packet, you guys did receive amortization schedules of all of our major debt and how far it goes out. So I went back to 2018 to show, and the current, and most of the debt looks like some of it goes to like year 2038. But I did it by topic. We have loans with Ohio Public Works, which are 0% interest rates. We do have debt with, U.S. Department of Agriculture. We'll have different bonds and series. So it was a very detailed financial director's report for the month of September. So if you have any questions on that, I'll be more than happy to answer that when we come to pass my report. But the major topic that we want to discuss right now is on October 11th, our independent auditors called Charles Harris and Associates finally compiled and finished the audit. And I gave the audit report to our city manager, and he'll have discussion with you. You guys can waive or have an exit audit meeting with them if you want, or you can waive that. That is something you guys will have to discuss amongst yourselves and make that decision. But overall, I'm going to let you know that so far that this has been our best audit and a very clean audit. Since I've been the finance director since 2016, we had a packet for recommendations. We're down to 3. So we're making progress in the right direction. And first of all, I cannot thank each member of council here for your assistance and your professionalism, and the city manager's help and the city clerk, because we have spent many hours on this audit, and my staff. I could not have done this without everyone's help. I just want to say thank you.
Stole my thunder when a few years ago we had that much. Now we're down to 1 page with 3. We're really making progress, but I noticed that. Thank you. Does anyone else like to comment on the finance director? And I'll move on to the law director. Any questions for the law director?
I have nothing to report, but I'm available for questions, gentlemen.
Any questions for the law director? The city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few relevant points. I want to thank Thomas Folk and Associates, in particular Paul Kurtz. We have really been bearing down with them as relates to the Ohio Public Works Commission applications. And I believe historically, the city has only received one grant on an annual basis from the OPWC. I anticipate that we will receive 2 grants, and as Councilman Waddell has indicated, even the possibility of 3 approvals from the OPWC, and that certainly would be record-breaking for our community. And Thomas Folk has worked very diligently, and I want to thank them especially because of the fact that when they work on these projects, they only get paid if the project is approved because they provide the underlying engineering. So they work on the application process, not knowing if ultimately they're going to generate revenue from the project unless it's funded. So their work has really been outstanding. The other thing I want to make sure that I mentioned is that the council legislation, this agenda, while it does not contain the ordinances attached to the agenda, what we've done is we publish them on our website, so it's a click of the mouse. And you'd have seen every single piece of legislation, every single report, every single aspect of this legislation. It's unfortunate. We live in a digital world, and if you make a phone call, we'll provide you with a hard copy, but we are slowly, in case any of you have noticed, we're moving towards a paperless system, a click of the mouse. And if you have a mobile device, you can see the agenda in full and every single word of every single ordinance in full. You don't have to wait to come to the meeting. You can see it days ahead of time because we publish it on the website days ahead of time. So we have complete opportunity for everybody in the public to see what's going on here. Just click the mouse or use your mobile device. And then last, I want to make sure that in addition to congratulating everybody on what happened with the cakewalk and trick or treat, the police department reports that trick or treating was at record levels on Saturday, record levels. And there were some streets you couldn't drive down the street. It was orderly, it was calm. The kids were very well behaved, and on top of that, the cakewalk was such a success that it wouldn't surprise me to see an announcement from the Kiwanis very shortly here demonstrating some record-setting levels for the cakewalk as well. Last, I wanted to make sure that everybody gets involved with the Fill a Cruiser program sponsored by the Newton Falls Police Department. That's Saturday, November 16th, and that's from 10 to 3 o'clock, and that'll be over in the parking lots of the IGA and the Shop and Save. So fill that cruiser. All donations stay in Newton Falls to help families from Newton Falls only, so please participate. And there's also a clothing drive, which is associated with that same thing. Thank you very much for reminding me. And that's also, the clothing drive is to benefit the school in particular. Is that correct? All right, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks this evening.
Thank you. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Okay. We'll move on then to the approval of the previous minutes for October 7th, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve the October 7th, 2019 meeting? Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Savet.
Yes.
Waddell. Beer.
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes. I'd like to have a motion to approve the October 21st, 2019 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Waddell.
Yes.
Beer.
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes.
Savet.
Yes.
Tonight, we have public hearings on ordinance 2019-26, amending the ordinance 2018-23 for employee health insurance.
Anybody wishes to speak about it?
Does anyone wish to speak on it tonight?
Rule that closed.
I'm going to rule that closed. Do I have a motion to accept?
Second. public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to go both of them then. Does any ordinance 2019-27 establishing and describing the boundaries of community reinvestment area? Does anyone wish to speak on that tonight? I'm going to rule that closed. Okay. Under unfinished business, ordinance 2019-26, amending ordinance 2018-23 for employees' health insurance.
We should have a motion removed from the table.
I want to have a motion to have it removed. It was tabled.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Beer?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2019
You guys deal with the whole, we have to go,
Oh, you want to do the whole?
yeah, if we have to do the ordinance, then we
One
have
at
to
a time.
discuss it.
All right. Any discussion?
Need to read it.
Yep, hold on. We just took it off the table. We have the clerk read ordinance
Oh, have-
2019-26
all right.
by
That's
title.
right. Would the clerk please read that by
An
title? I'm
ordinance
sorry.
amending ordinance 2018-23, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Burnham and Flowers Insurance Group for employee health insurance.
Now I'll ask anybody in for a second. And you can also bring it to the floor.
Would anyone second that?
Are you firsting it, sir?
Yeah, I'll bring that motion to the table.
I'll
second it. Second? Discussion? I'll just say that, from what I understand, it's very good, it's the same. If there's no other discussion, roll call?
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Now we'll go to ordinance 2019-27, establishing and describing the boundaries of community investment area. I'll make that motion.
We need a motion that you have to take off the
Oh,
table
let the,
first, sir.
I'm sorry, let the clerk read that, please.
Remove it from the
You
table
have to
first.
remove, it's
Oh,
tabled.
oh, it was, I'm sorry, that was tabled. That one was tabled too. I have a motion to remove that from the table. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call,
Discussion.
roll call.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, now discussion.
Now read it by title.
Now you have the clerk read by title.
Now, can the clerk please read that by title?
An ordinance implementing section 3735.65 through 3735.70 of the Ohio Revised Code establishing and describing the boundaries of Community Reinvestment Area, CRA, in the city of Newton Falls, designating a housing officer to administer the program, and creating a Community Reinvestment Housing Council in order to incentivize new commercial, industrial, and housing construction and rehabilitation, remodeling in the city of Newton Falls.
Do I have a motion? I'd like to have the city manager weigh in on this, please.
Yes, we've had a little bit of discussion before, and in fact, what I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is defer to Councilman Savet just for the moment, because he and I have worked very closely on creating the community reinvestment area. Councilman?
Yeah, so this allows for companies or residential property owners to apply for tax reduction on your bills to either remodel or build new construction. There are some floors that they have to meet, so I believe it's $2,500 on the residential side, and then I want to say maybe it's $50,000 right off the top of my head on the industrial and commercial side.
Mr. Savet, is that a maximum 5 years on the tax reduction?
It depends on the level that they're investing.
On the
So
level?
the more they invest, the higher those years go. And the more payroll they bring in, especially on the commercial, industrial side, the higher their years go as well.
And it can go as low as 3 years, right?
Correct, I believe.
Thank you very much. Would you like to say anything else, Mr. Lynch?
I just want to thank our consultants over Youngstown State University for helping us put this together. Community reinvestment areas are very common all throughout the state. In fact, most communities have them because you want to encourage investment in your community. what's unique about this is that we have been able to get certification that every square inch of Newton Falls is part of the community reinvestment area. So if somebody decides they want to make an investment, they only have to hunt around to see, well, where is that community reinvestment area advantage available? If passed by council tonight, it will be available in every square inch of Newton Falls.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Waddell? Beer?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
All right, we'll go on to new business. Ordinance 2019-28, authorizing the sale of property in the Liberty Allotment Number 3 to Christopher King. Would you
Read by title, please.
Would the clerk please read that by title?
An ordinance selling .08459 acres of parcel 53-003024 to Christopher King.
Would the city manager please weigh in on this?
Hasn't heard about the floor yet. Someone has to bring forth the motion and a second, sir.
Could I please have a motion, put that on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Can we recognize Mr. Chairman?
Roll call.
Discussion.
Second.
They already got the second, sir.
We already have the second.
May I be heard? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of council, I'm going to ask that you table this tonight. I've had some discussions with our zoning officer as it relates to this particular matter, and there still remains a little bit of confusion as to the entirety of the size of the area that the city's interested in having. And because of that lack of clarity, I'd like to resolve that before it comes to the council for a vote. So I would ask Mr. Chairman and members of council if you'd be kind enough to table this.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor, then to table it.
I'll second that.
Motion's been seconded.
You have a specific date, sir?
To the next regular meeting for first reading.
That's fine, thank you.
I'd like to put a motion on the table to the next meeting for a first reading.
I'll second that.
Was seconded. Roll call.
Beer?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Clerk, read the next one.
Okay, the next one, ordinance 2019-29, authorizing the sale of property to Michael's Metal Recycling. Do I have a motion to put that on the floor?
Clerk, read it, please.
Clerk, please read that by title first.
An ordinance selling 4.26 acres of property known as parcel 51-900081 to Mitchell's Metal Recycling Service LLC.
I'll make the motion to put that on the floor.
Second.
Would the city manager weigh in on this?
This property has been needed by Mitchell's, which is over there, I believe, near the Rockwell Building, for the purposes of their utilization for their expansion of activities over there. The city has no use for the property, and we, quite frankly, would encourage their expansion activities, and we're delighted to give them that opportunity.
Mr. Mayor, may I add something also? With regards, we put an easement on this property to allow for future recreational use if necessary. I want to make sure that's on there, so you understand, with some concerns of council, the easement's part of that and it's been presented. Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, did you talk with Mr. Mitchell about that, the easement with that? Did he just?
Yes.
You guys, okay. Because there was some discussion we'd had before about that,
Sure.
but, okay.
Roll call, please. Mr. Savet?
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-30, authorizing city manager to enter into a lease agreement with the property located at 4904 State Route 5. Would the clerk please read that by title?
An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into and execute a contract with Paul Anthony of Ravenna Structures.
Make that motion. Second. Anybody have a second? Discussion?
Question. Any discussion about the second option on that? the first option that we had that didn't go through, any discussion about the, we were going to lease it out before?
Oh, okay.
Any
You're talking
discussion
about
on
the
that?
Fat Pappies?
Yeah.
Proposal? No, we sent them Fat Pappies. I think council authorized me to deal with Fat Pappies to put some kind of concession stand on there. That contract was probably sent to him for review and response. I'm going to say now it's been about 3 or 4 months, I think even longer than that, and has not come back, no response whatsoever. And this is, you snooze, you lose kind of a situation. This gentleman has agreed to fix up that property because, as you know, the external presentation of that property is pretty ragged. And so we have the opportunity to make him vacate the property. But in the meantime, the trade-off is that that property will be cleaned up in terms of the external part of it. I anticipate sometime after March, we'll be getting the grant from the state that will allow us to have the tanks removed at zero cost as well.
Is he aware that we're going to work on that later?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we, I want to question you, are we bound by the old contract?
No,
We are not?
no.
It was never signed.
We're not bound by the Fat Pappy. We passed that in emergency legislation, I remember.
That may be the case, but once he was presented with a contract, he refused to act on it.
Okay. All right. And there'll be no problem with the new owner coming in there and having maybe to move some stuff out of there for us to clean up the debris?
Yeah, there's a provision that allows us to do that. In fact, we also have a 30-day termination provision in here.
That is 30-day, right. I'll let the public know that. Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Savet.
Yes.
Waddell. Beer.
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes.
He's sitting in the back. We should go.
Well, he could join us. He could move.
Yeah.
Ordinance 2019-31, enter into agreement with the Joint Fire District. Would you please read that by title?
An ordinance repealing ordinance 2017-17, authorizing the city manager to enter into a new agreement creating a joint fire district.
Amend that to,
Well, that's been on the floor. They put it on the floor first, yeah.
okay,
Take an amendment.
what I want it to be amended?
No, we have to put it on the floor, and then you
Oh, okay.
amend what we have on the floor.
Move to accept it.
So,
I have a motion to put this on the floor.
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to move to amend
Yes, sir.
this to be the, to have the additional language added to it that would include the room downstairs that the fire district uses, as it was in previous contracts. And that, I guess, would be, the village agrees to permit the fire district to occupy the parts of the municipal building located at 19 North Canal Street, previously and currently being used for the fire purposes at no charge to the district. The property would generally be described as the north half of the first floor, including the apparatus bays and the office meeting room. I'd like that to be added as part of it.
Bill, can I make a recommendation? Is
Okay.
there, from the 2017, there are some discrepancies, as Katie Carl actually mentioned. I would like to table this so that we can marry the two documents, that there's some discrepancy on the numbers.
Yeah, you and I had a brief discussion earlier today, and so as it relates to that and the issue that Councilman Beer is raising, I would recommend that the matter get tabled, and then I'll try to work out the language in conference with the law director.
Couple matters we have to take care of. Right now, we have an amendment that's never been seconded. So we have to take care of that.
Right.
Also, for the record, you should announce that Mr. Alberini is now in attendance and having part of the roll going forward. Mr. Albertini's here now.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I can withdraw that then?
You can.
Okay, I will withdraw that.
Okay, now, so we have a motion on the floor. Now, is there a motion to table that?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
Roll call?
Waddell?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Alberini?
Abstain.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Ordinance 2019-32, vacating 50 feet of West Liberty Street. Would the clerk please read that by title?
An ordinance vacating 50 feet of West Liberty Street.
I'll put that motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is a first reading. This parcel is what is sometimes interestingly referred to as a paper street. I don't know if the intention was eventually that it become a regular compliant roadway, but that never took place. And these property owners adjacent to it have been maintaining the city's property. And the normal course of action for a municipality case like this is to say thank you to the citizen and reward their good citizenship by vacating the parcel so that it becomes attached to their own. And the two residents that are adjacent to this parcel have consented to do so. Tonight's a first reading, so I would ask that it be passed for first reading and then brought up at the meeting of November 18th for final passage.
Will each of them get half of it?
Mr. Law Director, is that right? I think it is half. Okay, they each get half.
Each will get half. Go ahead. You're recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Law Director, does this item have to go to the county commissioners for their approval? Because I know sometimes those, get onto their agenda. I wasn't sure if it was
No, it
just
does not.
townships or if municipalities had to do that as well.
It does not, and since both of the adjacent property owners have agreed, there's no notice provision or anything else the city has to do.
Right.
They're going to take on the responsibility. The costs of modifying the deeds are on them. We're just vacating the street so that they can make it part of their property.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Any further discussion?
Any further discussion?
Call roll.
Roll call?
Beer?
Yes.
Alberini?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes. Resolution 49-2019, authorizing the cost of removal of weeds and grass.
Have the clerk read it.
Would the clerk please read that?
A resolution authorizing the finance director to certify the cost of removal of weeds and grass to the county fiscal officer for collection in the manner provided by law.
Anyone like
So moved.
second? Discussion?
We didn't get a second yet.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies.
Mr. Lynch, would you like to explain this a little better?
This is an annual event.
Talked about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is an annual event. In fact, I would defer it over to the finance director to give us a couple of details. Madam?
Yes.
All right, this is an annual event that, based upon the year of the season of the grass mowing throughout the year, our zoning inspector then submits the bills and parcel numbers and identifies each property. Then we follow the ordinance that was passed by council on what to assess the property. So what we do is, after you pass this resolution, we mail out a letter to all the property owners, giving them 30 days to pay. And if they don't pay within the 30 days, then we certify the amounts to the Trumbull County Auditor's Office for tax collection that we placed on their property tax bill.
Mr. Bariak, can be recognized? Thank you. Is there any way we can get a list, probably end of next year, I would imagine, because it's 2 payments for taxes, how much we're getting back from these individuals? If we could.
Absolutely, I'd be more happy to provide that.
And the reason I say that is if we have property owners that aren't paying their taxes, we're not getting reimbursed on some of these properties, does it make sense to try to do a foreclosure process on some of these properties that were mowing their properties anyways, we might as well mowing our own property. It makes sense.
And just an estimate, we obviously do not get about 100%. It's basically about 65% is what we're collecting, when last time we did the analysis and research on it.
And I know there's one in my ward particularly that I looked up that's $12,000 in rear on these fees and taxes, so, just looking particularly at that one, if not other ones within the city.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes, sir.
whether we're collecting the money or not, we're still going to mow these properties, right?
Well, the answer to that is yes, but the good news is that the properties, if it's unpaid, cannot transfer unless the amount is fully paid. So
That's what I
we
wanted
do
you to
have
get
that
on.
leverage, but Councilman Savetta is correct. If they get to too high a number, the law director could be directed to initiate foreclosure proceedings.
Yeah, glad that was put on. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, that's kind of what we talked about earlier this year. This thing amounts to about $19,000 in grass cutting, and if we're only going to get 65% of that back, we're losing about $7,000. And I think that's the answer. If we're not going to collect this because houses get foreclosed, houses that go to the land bank, we lose all that. We lose all that money. And so we need to figure out how to recoup some of our losses. We still want to keep the grass cut, but you have $5,000 in grass cutting fees here for some properties, and that's just absurd, so.
On this list, there's only 2 right now that are in that position. The rest of them, I have the opportunity to send them an invoice to get paid. So we only have 2 properties on that list that are in that situation.
Roll call?
Alberini?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell? Beer?
Resolution 50-2019, authorizing creation of a Justice Reinvestment and Incentive Fund. Do I have a motion to put that on the floor?
Have to have clerk read it first, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, would the clerk please read that?
A resolution authorizing the finance director to establish a justice reinvestment and incentive fund.
Do I have a motion to put that on the floor?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Honored members of council, the Newton Falls Municipal Court, approximately around October, has received a grant for the fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 21. Total amount of the grant is $40,000 and $776. That will be split between those 2 fiscal years. The probation individual that is responsible for the grant has submitted to finance that they would want a separate fund for this. So when you have to create a fund for a grant, it's called a special revenue fund. And per the Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.121, establishing permission of the funds, it does require an ordinance or a resolution when you have money derived from special sources such as a grant, not from general property tax. That is why there is a resolution in front of you tonight, which then I would then submit the resolution to the state auditor's office, because when you create funds, you just can't create funds. So that this is a special need. It's for a grant revenue to track those revenues strictly for our municipal courts. We ask for your blessing to pass this resolution to create this fund for the purposes of this grant.
Mr. Bryant? Just a quick comment. Was that shown in the budget, or will it be shown in the budget for 2020?
Yes, it will be, and it'll be under Fund 230. So
Okay.
it's
I
not,
wasn't-
it was not in the original draft, but it will be.
Okay. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Bariak?
Yes.
Savet?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Alberini?
Yes.
Motion to accept the finance director's reports.
So moved.
Second.
Anna, would you like to, Ms. Munson?
The September Finance Director's report explains the 2018 audit has been completed. It has our financial bank statements. It has income tax report. We're approximately 8% up in our income tax collections as of date. It has a distribution report. It also has our utility collection summary report. And again, it has all of our debt service reports for the city's debt. It has our credit card statement that we submit to council on a monthly basis. We are financially stable. And in addition, the 2018 CAFR has been submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association. It's going to take approximately 6 months to see if we get our first certificate of excellence. And I'm crossing my fingers and toes that we get that and praying for that. But a lot of work has gone into the audit and the CAFR. And again, just want to thank everybody for their help and just want to make sure that we have the highest standards of financial accountability. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Surratt.
Yes.
Waddell.
Yes.
Beer.
Yes.
Alberini.
Yes.
Bariak.
Yes. We'll move on to motion to request a ruling, declaratory judgment or mandamus concerning the filling of the 1st and 3rd Ward Council seats for the primary and next general election. And before I start, I'd like to put the motion, before I put the motion on the floor, I would like to ask that Mr. Surratt, 1st Ward Councilman, and Mr. Waddell, 3rd Ward Councilman, recuse themselves because this affects them directly. I would like to have you guys, I would like to ask you on the record to recuse yourselves.
I think we have the option to do that ourselves. I'm going to do that anyway.
Yes. So am I.
Okay, and then the reason I'm putting this motion on, this, I would like to show the public tonight, is from Mr. Danzo, which was the Board of Elections attorney.
You put it on the floor first.
Do I need a motion to discuss why I'm putting the motion on?
That's part of your discussion. You have to put the motion on the floor, get a second, then we can have the discussion regarding the specific motion.
Okay. I'd like to put the motion on the floor then to discuss the ruling to ask for the mandamus or the declaratory judgment for the 1st and 3rd Ward Council seats. Do I have a second?
The motion fails for lack of having a second.
Okay. All right. Okay. Public comments.
Hi, I'm Katie Carl, 128 West Quarry. I'd like to thank you for tabling that ordinance until you can look into that and make sure that that's more acceptable to our communities, both the village and the township, so that it's in the best interest of everybody involved. Thank you very much. I know you abstained, Mr. Alberini. Thank you, Bill. And again, tomorrow is Election Day. I am running for 4th Ward, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much. Oh, Anthony. You can't vote.
Shock 1015 Page Court. This is in address to your refusal, Mr. Surratt, your refusal to even forward this for a decision of the court. When you applied for your vacancy, you were interviewed. Okay, there were 2 people who applied. Both people got an interview. We didn't get an interview. I applied for the 3rd Ward seat, and Tessa applied for the 3rd Ward seat. You chose not to even interview. Yeah, I'm sorry. Am I out of turn on this? I thought that it was public comment. I can't hear. I have a hearing loss. Is there a problem?
He recused himself.
No, I was trying to get his attention. He was writing, and I said, Mr. Savet, to get his attention as I was speaking.
Okay.
Okay, that's all, I was just trying to get his attention instead of doodling. Into the record, I'd like to read, Mr. Boriak put this in writing. Mr. Fritz, I'd like you to pay close attention because I think this is in violation of our sunshine law. Shortly after the written request for the motion was placed upon their agenda on Wednesday, October the 30th, 2019, City Clerk sent out notice to David Lynch, Joe Fritz, all the council members in regards to this request, and it reads, Joe, Councilman Boriak would like to have the attached motion on the agenda for the Monday, November 4th meeting. Please review motion for proper wording. At 11:38, Terry Alberini responds in an email, and he says, members of council, so there's no doubt, listen to what he's saying, members of council and staff. In the spirit of transparency, and before I enter even discussing this handwritten motion, please advise the councilman as to whom the author of this motion is, or to whom what legal counsel was used to write it. The Board of Election obviously has made a ruling, that of which Councilman Boriak does not agree with. Also, for the record, neither does our law director. However, the same Board of Elections is the board that, due to time constraints earlier this year, failed to address Councilman Boriak's recall. I find it humorous that Councilman Boriak took no exception to that ruling being favorable to his point of view, but wants to apparently overrule their current ruling, which he does not agree with. I think council and staff need to focus on more productive issues than these continual time wasters that constantly brought up by Second Ward councilman. Thank you, Terry. Council at large, speaking as a councilman. In response, at 2:31 p.m., comes my representative, Third Ward councilman. I agree. John only wants benefits what benefits him. In my opinion, period. And now tonight, you stamped this conversation and discussion of an agenda item document. You deliberated it in email. Shame on you, and I will seek the decree from the court and my own dime just to get you out of this office, Mr. Waddell. Thank you, Mr. Boriak. And I'm sorry for overrunning my time.
Sandra Braymeyer, 332 Ravenna Road. I live in the village and I'm in the 4th Ward. Tomorrow I'm going to be running for the seat of the 4th Ward. And I would appreciate your vote, and if elected, I plan on working to save the community center, if possible. At this time, I would ask the voters to please vote Braymeyer, Boriak, and Monaville. Thank you.
Robert Carlson, 48 Orchard Street. Thank you for your response on this, Mr. Lynch. The problem is, even though you post it online, whenever you're having discussions here, I don't think you'd like us to bring in computers, laptops, or mobile devices to follow along what is going on. Oh, you want us to print it?
That's why we put it online.
You used to put it with the agenda so we could follow along.
Okay.
I mean, for years. That was nice for the people here and whenever it was discussed.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're right.
The resolution that Acting Mayor Boriak entered into this body failed for a second motion. The second wasn't given. It died.
well, you may as well kill democracy, brothers. And that's what you've been doing here. You've been making a mockery. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the audience out there. You petty little politicians have been making a mockery out of justice and liberty for all in this community. You should be ashamed. What, not a single person voted for you for Ward 3, yet you sit there with your smugness and try to represent us. That should be shameful. You shouldn't have any right to sit there, and everything that you said and every vote that you gave is illegitimate because you are not a legitimate councilman. You violated the charter. So the little conspiracy actually is not going to work. You're not going to get your way. This community is waking up. We've had it with this type of nonsense. We want this beautiful community to survive. And you have been struggling in your little petty ways to suffocate the goodness of this community with your petty little ways. That's going to end. And I'm encouraging everybody tomorrow to vote like the future of Newton Falls depends upon it, because it does. We've got to get rid of this political cancer.
Jim, Mr. Fritz, as you know, I served on council for a long time. You sternly warned us about emails, round robining, violating the Sunshine Law. I encourage you to look at that email, see if that was a round robin, see if it was a Sunshine Law violation. If it was, I expect you to enforce the law as you swore to do, as you're being paid to do, and make sure that these council people are punished for doing what they should not have been doing.
Richard Monaville, 1025 Page Court. I actually was going to speak, and I will get on something else, but what this young lady spoke about, this foundation game, it's a game that the state allows us to play somebody else. It doesn't count for the standing. It's pretty much a fun night, and it'd be a great thing to do if the citizens could get behind this, because this Chloe is a very sweet young lady. And if we could do something for her, it would be a great thing for the citizens of Newton Falls. So if you show up at the game or you order one of these T-shirts, that definitely would help this young lady. But what I think we should do, and I always would like to do, is give credit for credit due. And I don't know if enough credit was given, and if you feel that there was, and I think there should be maybe more, so I'm going to go ahead and give some credit, and then we'll go from there. The first person I'd like to really recognize is Vonda Wenzel. That corner, if you look on Center Street in the Center and Broad, where she's put up and worked and mowed and cleaned that area up and put those benches in there, is a very beautiful area. It's very nice, and with the light by the Christian church shining on it in the evening, it's a place for people to enjoy. And I would really want to thank Vonda for doing that. Another person is Matt Massaras, if I'm saying his name right, I hope so. He has a little fabricating plant that's on right next to the Main Street Bridge, and he and some of his people cleaned up the east side of the riverbank right by the bridge. And especially when everything was shut down, that was really nice, because a lot of people were using that Main Street Bridge and got an opportunity to see that. And the third person I'd like to thank is John Boryak. John and his crew cleaned up Commerce Park. I have not seen that park used for years. But in the last 2 or 3 months, I have seen numerous people, men, women, and families using Commerce Park, some to go down there to fish, some to have a picnic, some to kayakers, and it was just great. And I just would like to thank you, John, for what you and your crew did. I think you did a wonderful job, and like I said, just recognize Vonda, Matt, and John for the fine work of cleaning up and beautifying Newton Falls. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Good evening, Council. Dennis Richter, 231 Maple Street, Newton Falls, Ohio. I'm the Managing Director of the Senior Transit Service here in Newton Falls. We've kept it running now for 3 years on donations. I understand Council's problems with the state cutting their funding and us losing the grants. We weathered it, and we're keeping it going. So today, picking a lady up on Quarry Street, I looked at the community center and I said, wow, somebody cut all that brush down. It looks nice. It actually improves the whole appearance of the city park. It's a great thing. Now, I don't know who did that, but I want to thank you for that. And I would encourage the voters in the community to vote for the Senior Services Levy. It's very important. It benefits everybody in the county, and particularly SCOPE, which is a great organization. And thank you for letting me have this time to speak to you this evening.
Are there any other public comments? Mr. Savett?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Waddell?
Were you going to talk about the Vonda at the corner? Were you going to say anything about that? Or are you leaving that alone?
I'm leaving it alone for the moment.
Okay, because he brought it up, and I just didn't know if you want to talk about it later?
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting that there's just a small amount of people in this community that if you disagree with them, then you're wrong. And it's small and vocal, and it's a shame. And I stand by my constitutional right to express my opinion and my concerns, and I will do so, whether he likes it or whether they don't like it. And it's disgusting for all the good things that are actually going on in this community and the positive things that we do have going, that we have a very small, vocal distraction. And I have the right to make my opinions and speak, and I will do so.
Mr. Beard?
Yes, I'd like to say in response to comments earlier that Mr. Waddell served 2 terms as mayor. He didn't serve a 3rd term as mayor. That seat was open. He stepped down and we put him in. And, it's like, that was all legal. And I support the mayor. I would rather see him in there than anybody else that applied. So, you guys have your opinions, but we did nothing illegal. And I support the mayor 100%. He's done more for this city than any of the other past people who are complaining against him. He's, brought economic development, and we've moved ahead more than we ever did with one of the other mayors. So, in that respect, Ed, Mr. Savett was also appointed. I have a vote as to who I think should be in there when I sit in this seat. And I don't have to vote for your candidate. So I'd just like that to be known. Also, we have the election coming up. We cannot endorse anybody up here. Katie's running. Mr. Bariak is up for re-election. It's up to the people, who they want to put in there. Sandy Braymeyer is also running. So all I can say is good luck, Katie, and good luck, John, and your girlfriend, Sandy.
What about Nancy?
Pardon?
What about Nancy?
Very nice.
Oh, well, yeah, Nancy, too, is running, so it's up to you to decide.
City Manager? Mr. Alberini?
Thank you, Mr. Bariak. I appreciate it. First of all, I encourage all the candidates to go out to vote tomorrow, and obviously the best of luck to everybody, and I truly mean that. Whoever wins, welcome as members of council, number one. Number two, It's disturbing to hear these comments from some of the recycled politicians that we have here in town about these collusionary tactics that supposedly took place. I'm not a part of it. I don't know if my fellow council members are a part of it as well. We have followed the guidelines that Mr. Fritz has laid out for us. And by the way, Mr. Fritz does have a Juris Doctorate in law from Akron University, if memory serves me correct. The people casting those accusations don't have Juris Doctorates in law and aren't well schooled in the School of Law. So Mr. Fritz is my go-to guy as far as legal advice goes. I got it back up here to the left of me. So everything that we've done here as far as hiring or bringing on Councilman Savet and Councilman Waddell, we've done what we are supposed to do. We have followed those guidelines to the best of our ability. We have done nothing wrong. We had guidelines that were set in place for people to apply. Councilman Waddell was the only one who applied. Councilman Savet, I think you were one of 3 candidates. We did interview all 3 of those candidates. Now this leads me to my next point. That email I had sent wasn't a hidden email. It was a public email. I did not hide that email from anybody. That was my opinion. As a council person, I'm allowed to state my opinion. And there are people who do call Councilman Terry Alberini. Excuse me? There are people who call Councilman Terry Alberini and state their opinion too as well. And I try to listen to everybody. I feel confident that I have made the correct decision. The Board of Elections, as you know, my cousin Mark Alberini is on there. I discussed nothing with Mark Alberini whatsoever. The ruling that came out, excuse me? The ruling that came out was voted on 4-0. I have nothing to do with it. My fellow council members have nothing to do with it. It was a bipartisan vote, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. This council person is not going to overrule a vote made by an impartial committee. With that being said, these things I put in email are time wasters for us. We have a lot better things to focus on in our community than worrying about who's going to be king of the hill here in Newton Falls, or who's in charge, or who runs this town, and things like that. Ultimately, you run the town. The community runs the town. We are your servants. We were elected. Excuse me, Jim. We were elected. The previous, I've been blessed to win 2 elections in this town, and I'm thankful that the voters gave me the majority of the vote. And Mr. Waddell, his last election as mayor, he won, he had 1,012 votes. That's a mandate. So we just didn't win by the skin of our teeth. The people believed in our message. They believed in what we were doing. And that's not just, I take the opinion of the majority. I listen to the people who don't, who voted against me. I don't have a problem with that. You're taxpayers. You want to come up here and speak your piece. I have no problem with that whatsoever. We were out, all of us were out working on behalf of the schools and trying to pass a school levy. I don't know of another council who would do that. And some of you folks you're in a critical time period here in Newton Falls. And to worry about this frivolous stuff like this, you may be Southington schools here in the next 3 to 5 years. You may be Lordstown schools in the next 3 to 5 years. This little tit-for-tat stuff means nothing if those things take place. So that being said, Mr. Bariak, I wish you the best tomorrow. Ms. Hoffman, I wish you the best. Ms. Katie, I wish you the best. Ms. Sandy, I wish you the best tomorrow, okay? God bless you all. Thank you for running, too, as well. Thank you.
City Manager, anything?
Just very briefly, and I walk somewhat of a fine line on this, and there's been a lot of jawing around town as it relates to the issue of the action taken by the Board of Elections. Specifically, I asked the law director to issue a written ruling as to his interpretation of our charter in order to determine if we should have an election in 2020. And he very kindly issued that in writing and said that our charter decrees that we should have an election next year in 2020. That interpretation went over to the county prosecutor's office, who issued a written opinion that states in part, because Attorney Fritz is likely the person most familiar with the operation of the Newton Falls Charter, I believe the board could rely on his interpretation. Moreover, this interpretation meaning the interpretation of the law director, promotes ballot access and the right to vote on replacement candidates at the earliest possible time. He then goes on to say in a later section of that opinion that while we believe that it is reasonable to rely on the interpretation of the Newton Falls Law Director, Director Penrose has also reached out to the Ohio Secretary of State's office to allow it to weigh in on this matter. I've conferred with the law director on this very question. In fact, Councilman Bariak has asked me about this, and that's the reason why his motion was placed on the floor tonight. However, it also indicates that as of the time of the writing of this letter, Director Penrose of the Board of Elections has not received any response from the Secretary of State's office. So we, to some extent, are waiting for the Secretary of State to say, did the Board of Elections make the right decision or the wrong decision? As I understand the Ohio law, the final arbiter in terms of administrative determinations when it comes to elections is the Secretary of State, him or herself. And therefore, the Secretary of State has a question put before it by the Board of Elections Director here in Trumbull County, despite the fact that the board itself has made a ruling. I guess what I'm trying to say is some of these protestations are a little bit premature. I would be surprised if the Secretary of State didn't say that the law director, the county prosecutor, and Ohio law require that we have those elections next year sometime. So everybody should calm down and wait for the Secretary of State to do what they are charged to do, and then we'll see what action to take at that time. But clearly, according to the county prosecutor, the ball is now in the court of the Secretary of State's office. It would be premature for us to do anything too quickly before that ruling comes forward. And I would anticipate, because of the fact that there are some very severe deadlines involved, getting signatures and things of that nature, that the Secretary of State will give us a response sometime very soon. So I'm urging calm in the neighborhoods, on Facebook, social media generally, and when you talk to your neighbors. There is an opportunity for this matter to be resolved, and I anticipate it will be resolved in a way that's consistent with the man that the county prosecutor says is the person most familiar with the operation of the Newton Falls Charter, that is Mr. Fritz, the law director. So everyone, please be patient. Those are my remarks.
Well, I wasn't allowed to put it on the floor last night, but I'm going to talk now. First of all, this is from Mr. Danzo, the Board of Elections. And I'm going to back our law attorney up tonight, Mr. Fritz, and I'm going to read directly from it. It says, Attorney Fritz, in the attached opinion, has concluded the election must be held in 2020. Because Attorney Fritz is likely the person most familiar with the Operation Newton Falls Charter, I believe we should rely on his interpretation. Moreover, the interpretation promotes ballot access and the right to vote on replacement candidates at the earliest possible time. Now, what this is about is the Secretary of State, while we're waiting on the Secretary of State, time is precious to get these, and I don't doubt maybe that the Secretary of State will rule with us. As a matter of fact, in the opinion, Mr. Danzo says the board will have to reverse its opinion. But we're letting four people tell us, the whole Newton Falls, that our charter, to go against our charter and to go against our law director. And I feel time is of the essence, and we should have gone on with this tonight with a motion to get a declaratory judgment or a mandamus. And excuse me, Mr. Alberini, I didn't have a law director in my pocket. I don't.
Point of order.
No point of order, me. You're out of order.
No, I'm not.
No, you said that your email. I'm addressing your email. You're out of order, Mr. Alberini. You're out of order. You're out of order. You're out of order.
I'm in order.
You're out of order.
You're out.
You're out of order, sir. You're out of order.
Hit it again, John.
You may not have any respect for me, but you will have respect for this position.
Since when have you had respect for that position?
You're out of order.
Okay, I'm out of order.
We need to support our law director and our citizens of this community to protect our citizens in the charter. What reason do we have home rule if we're not going to go by it? We might as well just do away with the charter. If we're not going to stick up for our law director, and we're not going to go and we're going to let 4 people at the Board of Election tell us what to do. And excuse me, I'm not going to talk down, but if you people read the paper, the Board of Election has been overruled a few times in the last year, you know, by the Supreme Court and everybody else. So I'm not saying it's partisan, that it was meant to be, but you people decide on what went on here tonight. Thank you. I do hope everybody gets out there to vote tomorrow, vote for their candidate, and I appreciate the honor, and I would like to have the honor to keep on serving this community. It is the greatest honor of my life to represent the people of this community. Thank you. Is there any motion to go into executive session tonight?
So moved.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Waddell?
Yes.
Beer?
Yes.
Alberini?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Surratt?
Yes.
I didn't think I was, but who am I to judge?